It's so good to see you today. For our reading lesson, we are going to be working in journeys, just like we do for pretty much every lesson. And if you remember the start of our every lesson, do you remember how we start? We start with a phonemic awareness warm-up. So let's get started. So, my lovely first graders, I know you probably know this drill by now. Mrs. Collier is going to say the word, and then we are going to blend the word together. Now, how do we blend a word? Do you remember? I'll give you a hint. We use our arm. So, if you remember the way we blend a word, we hit each letter sound on our arm. Let me scoot this way. So, let's see. If I have the word cat, I can blend the word by going k-at, and blend it all together with one big sweep. Are you ready? Let's start with our first word for today. Let's start with the word cold. Ooh, cold. When I say the word cold, think, what is that going to sound like when I break it down to blend it? Cold. Are you ready? So I'm going to get my arm up. And our first word is cold. Cold. Do it with me. K-old. K-old. Blend it. Cold. Very good. Next, let's try the word nest. Nest. Arm up. Ready? Nest. Nest. This one's a little bit tricky because you hear each of those letter sounds and they sound kind of funny when they're just by themselves. Our word is nest. 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 When we put it all together though, nest. It sounds just right. Our next word is Mrs. Collier's favorite animal, the word pig. Pig. Let's get ready. Pig. Pig. Do you notice how each time Mrs. Collier says a letter sound, she really has to move her lips? That can show that we are really working to say our word. So when I say pig, pig, you can hear Mrs. Collier say each letter sound. So when you're working out those sounds, make sure you're talking big and strong so that you can hear each letter sound it makes. Now let's do the word mess. Let's think. Mess. Arm up. M-S. M-S. Mess. When I think of the word mess, I think of a messy room. A messy room. I hope you don't have a messy room at home. And our last word, we use these a lot during math time. A block. Block. Are you ready? Arm up. Block. 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 Awesome job, everybody. Next, let's practice some of our daily frequency words. So these are the words we learned in our last lesson. It is all of these words. He, to, look, have, those kinds of words. So we are going to review them today. And today we're going to be doing it just a little bit differently. We're going to cheer our words. Now some of you might be thinking, Mrs. Collier, how are we going to cheer our words? I'm going to show you. So, with our word he, we are going to say the word, spell the word, write the word, and then we'll add a little zest at the end and cheer the word. So, I will show you how to do it. So, do it with me. Say the word he. He. He is spelt H-E. Spell it with me. H-E. We can write the word together. So get your finger ready. Write H-E. Very good. Do it again. H-E. Okay. Now here's for our cheer. Are you ready? Give me an H, H, H. Give me an E, E, E. What does that spell? He. Awesome. Our next word, look. Say the word look. Look. Look is spelled L-O-O-K. Spell it with me. L-O-O-K. Good job. Rewrite the word look. L-O-O-K. One more time. L-O-O-K. Are you ready for our cheer? All right. Give me an L, L, L. Give me an O, O, O. Give me another O, 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 O. Give me a K, K, K. Awesome. Are you ready for another one? Our next word, two. Say the word two. Two. Two is spelled T-O-O. T-O-O. Let's write the word two. T-O-O. Again. T-O-O. Awesome. Let's do our cheer. Are you ready? Give me a T, T, T. Give me an O, O, O. Give me another O, 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 O. Awesome job, guys. Do you like doing these cheers? I hope so. Our next word, what, what. Say the word what. Awesome. What is spelled W-H-A-T. W-H-A-T. We write the word what? W-H-A-T. One more time. W-H-A-T. Awesome job. I think you know what comes next. Give me a W, W, W. Give me an H, H, H. Give me an A, A, A. Give me a T, T, T. Great job. Let's do a couple more. Our next word is have. Say the word have. Have. Have is spelled H-A-V-E. H-A-V-E. We write the word have. H-A-V-E. Let's do it again one more time. H-A-V-E. Great job. Now let's cheer together. Cheer with me. Give me an H, H, H. Give me an A, A, A. Give me a V, V, V. Give me an E, E, E. Awesome job, everybody. We just have one more left. Our last word is for. For. Say the word for. For is spelled F-O-R. F-O-R. We write the word for F-O-R. Do it with me. F-O-R. Great job. And for our final cheer for today, do it with me. Give me an F, F, F. Give me an O, O, O. Give me an R, R, R. Great job, everybody. Let's move on to our next activity. For our next activity, I want to talk about some of the vocabulary words we learned in our last lesson. So if you remember, we read our story called Susie and the Bandits. We met a lot of different characters. We met a pack of raccoons, we met a skunk, we met a bunny, and we also learned some new vocabulary words. So I'm going to ask you some questions using some of those vocabulary words, and I want to see if you remember what they all mean. My first question is, why might raccoons be called bandits? Bandits was one of our vocabulary words. Do you remember what the word bandits mean? The word bandits means robbers. Do you know why the raccoons may have been called bandits or robbers? Well, if we think back in our story, do you remember how the raccoons would dig through people's trash can and steal their trash? Well, that could be a reason why the raccoons were called bandits or robbers. What about, when have you ever read a story about a character who was very brave? Now, brave was also one of our vocabulary words. Do you remember what the word brave means? When you are brave, it means you are able to face danger without being afraid. Do you remember ever reading a story about a character who was brave? And my last question for you is, when at school or at home, do you often hear a lot of chatter? Chatter was also one of our vocabulary words. Do you remember what it means? The word chatter means to talk fast. Now, when Mrs. Collier is at school, I always hear a lot of chattering at recess. For this part of the lesson, we are using our reader's notebook, and we are on page 23. On page 23 of the reader's notebook. If you need to pause this video in order to get your notebook out, please do so. So this is about our story, The Storm. So I know we've already read this story twice in our lessons, but we are going to be reading it again today, and I'll tell you why. So I know, like I said, we've read it before, but it's important to reread a story. Each time you reread a story, you might discover new information that you didn't notice last time. Also, rereading the story might help us understand the story more. And in some aspects, rereading the story helps us locate information that, again, we may not have noticed the first time. So on today's activity, we are working with the story, The Storm, but our activity is called A Dog's Story. So what do you think we might be working with today? Now, if you remember in our story, The Storm, our main character had a dog named Rip. Do you remember the dog? Our main character, Tim, had his dog Rip with him through the storm. Pop was also there. But today we are going to be talking about a dog story. So if we see this dog here, he says, "My pal Rip spent time in a storm." So this is Tim's dog's friend. So this is not Rip from our story. This is Rip's friend. So Rip's friend again said, "My pal Rip spent time in a storm." So what we are going to do today, we have already reread our story, but we are going to be looking on pages 48 and 49 of our story. And we are going to help Rip tell his pal Skip about the storm. So this is Skip. So our first sentence says, first Tim and I went to, and then there's a blank. So we need to look back on pages 48 and 49 of the story The Storm to see what we need to write. Now, if we look at page 48 and 49 in our story, so this is our story, The Storm. So page 48 says, what did Tim and Rip see? Page 49 says, Tim hid in his bed. Rip hid too. Now let's go back and look at our worksheet and see what it was asking us. So if we look at our workbook page, so it says, first Tim and I went to, let me underline it one more time. First Tim and I went to, so on our pages 48 and 49 that we just looked at, where did Tim and Rip go to? Now, if we look back on page 48 in our story, our workbook page says, first Tim and I went to. So on page 48, where are they at in the story? We could say that Tim and Rip are in Tim's room, or we could say that Tim and Rip are in bed. So let's fill out our first question together. So our question again was, first Tim and I went to. Well, we just went back in our story and looked at page 48, and we said that they went to Tim's room, or we could say they went to bed. So let's write those answers. So if we say first Tim and I went to bed, we are going to write B, 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 E, E, D, D. And that spells bed. B, E, D, bed. So we could say that for our answer, or we could say first Tim and I went to. We could say Tim's, so our main character's name, Tim, and then we have an S because we're saying Tim's room, so Tim's room. And we always put a period at the end of our sentence. So we could have said, first Tim and I went to bed, or we could say, first Tim and I went to Tim's room. Either of those are the correct answer. Our next question on our worksheet, so still on page 23, says, next we saw blank. So let's look on page 48 of our story, The Storm. So we can see Tim and Rip are looking out at the window. Do you know what this is called, what they are seeing? These big light bolts. Do you know what that is called during a storm? That is called lightning. So what did Tim and Rip see? They saw lightning. So we just answered our second question. Next, we saw blank. Well, we saw on our page in our story that Tim and Rip saw lightning. So let's write the word lightning. It's a pretty big word, but let's do it together. Lightning, so we hear L, I, G, end. So this is a pretty big word for first grade. This is how you say lightning. Lightning. So that is what Tim and Rip saw. Our last question says, I felt blank. So let's go back in our story and look and see if we can see how Tim and Rip felt. So if we look back in our story, The Storm, we can see, because we're talking about pages 48 and 49, when Tim and Rip saw the lightning, they both have wide eyes. Tim is grabbing his blanket. And on the next page, both Tim and Rip are hiding and covering their faces. What do you think they are feeling? Do you think they feel happy, scared, sad? What emotion do you think Tim and Rip are feeling in this picture? So based on what we see in our pictures in our story, if you are covering your eyes, hiding under a blanket, what emotion do you think you might be feeling? Do you think you would be feeling happy, sad, or scared? Scared is the emotion that Rip and Tim are feeling. So we're going to spell out scared. First we hear the S. So S. Oh, let me change my pen color so we can see it better. So scared. S. K. K. Aired. I felt scared. I would feel scared too in a big storm like that. So I felt scared. On the next side of our workbook, so page 24, Mrs. Collier's workbook says a different page, but we are going to be reading pages 50 to 53 of The Storm. So you should have that number on your workbook. Mrs. Collier's was just a little bit different. So before we go back and read over those pages, let's read our first question. It says, Pop gave me a blank. So when we go back and reread over our pages, we need to be listening and looking for what Pop gave Tim. So on page 50 of The Storm, it says, look what Pop had for Tim. Tim had a sip. So when we look at our picture, we can see that Pop gives Tim a cup to drink out of. We don't know exactly what this drink is, so we could just say that Pop gave Tim a drink. Let's look and see if Pop gives Tim anything else. On page 51, it says Pop had a hug for Tim. He had a hug for Rip too. So looking back on our workbook page, and remember this is different. We're on page 50 to 53. So it says Pop gave me a, well, we just looked at our story again and saw what Pop gave Tim. We talked about how we weren't sure exactly what kind of drink it might be, so we could just say that Pop gave me a drink, and he also gave Tim something else. Do you remember what it was? Pop gave Tim a hug. So we could finish our sentence by saying, Pop gave me a drink. A drink. And be writing with your pencil. A drink and a, oh, sorry, that's kind of a messy a hug. Aw, how nice of Pop. So Pop gave me a drink and a hug, period. So next on our workbook page, it says, I felt blank. So after Pop gave Tim a drink and a hug, do you think that Tim felt better or worse? So did he feel better or good or worse and not good? So after Pop gave Tim a drink and a hug, do you think Tim felt better or good, or that he felt worse and not good? I think that Tim felt better. Would you agree? Tim felt better because he was comforted and felt safe with Grandpa or Pop. So we are going to write the word better. I felt better. And we put a what at the end of our sentence? A period. So I felt better. And our last question says, then Pop sat. I blank. So let's go look at our story and see. So on our worksheet, our last statement says, then Pop sat and read. We blank. So Pop is sitting and reading. What are Tim and Rip doing in the picture? What are both of them doing? So Pop sat. What did Tim and Rip do? We just saw it in our picture. What did they do? They went to sleep. So write this with me. We're going to write went, went, to, sleep. Then Pop sat. I went to sleep. Period. Great job, everybody, today. Make sure that you filled in all of these sentences as we went along. If you need to go back and pause the video or rewind, please do so that you can be all caught up. For the next part of our lesson, we are going to work on some phonemic awareness. So we do this pretty much every lesson, but for this particular one, I'm going to talk about 2 different letters. So after we talk about each letter, we are then going to work together to blend some words that also begin with that letter. Are you ready? Our first letter we are going to be working with today is the letter B. B. So I know a lot of you have seen this letter before. We've worked with this letter. We've done interventions talking about this letter sometimes. So what sound does this letter make? I know that the letter name is B, but what sound does it make? B, B. Good job. Our other letter that we're going to be talking about is the letter G. The letter G. So like the letter B, we've all seen this letter before. We know its name is G, but what sound does it make? G, G. The G makes the G, G sound. Great job. So now, let's see what happens when we take our letter B and letter G and put them in one word together. Let's see if we can decode and blend this word together. So the first letter in the word we are about to talk about begins with B. So what sound does B make again? B, B. Okay, remember that. So now we have added the letter I to our word. So now we have a B, B sound with the B and an I sound with our I. Let's add one more letter. Our last letter that we added was the letter G. Now the letter G makes what sound? G, G. So if we are going to blend all these words together, we have B, I, G. B, I, G. Let's do it faster. B, I, G. B, I, G. Big, big. Our word is big. So we just got done figuring out that this is the word big. Big. B-I-G. So what happens if I erase that letter G and I replace it with the letter N? Let's sound it out. B, I. What letter sound does N make? N. B, in. B, in. Bin. So we just made the word bin. B, in. All by changing one letter from the word big to bin. Let's change it one more time. Now, if I were to get rid of that last letter one more time. So it was big, then it was bin. What about if I added a B to the end? Let's see if we can blend it. B-ib. B-ib. Bib. So there we did it again. We changed the word big to bin to bib, all by changing one letter in the word. How awesome is that? Now let's try it with a word that starts with the letter G. G. If I add the letter A, my G makes what sound? G, G. My A makes the A sound. If I were to add an S to the end of that letter arrangement, I would have G, A-S. G, A-S. Gas. So we just made a whole word by adding a and an S to the letter G. Let's see if we can change it again. So if I were to erase the S at the end of gas, I'm left with G-A. Gas is what I am left with. But that's not a full word, so I want to add a P to the end of that. So then I'm left with g, at. What letter sound does P make? P, p. G, at, p. G, at, p. Say it faster. G, at, p. G, at, p. Gap. We now have the word gap. Great job, everybody. We did such a great job with our phonemic awareness activity. Now, for the end of our lesson, I'm going to read you our decodable story for the day. Today, we will be reading Sid Pig by Damian Byrne, illustrated by Ethan Long. So our first page, not this page here, that's from another story, just Sid Pig. It says, look at Sid Pig. He can see a big fig. So he can see a what? A big fig. What is his name? Sid Pig. It is a fat fig too. Can Sid tap the big fat fig? So can Sid Pig tap what? The fat fig. Can Sid tip the big fat fig? Can he do what? Can he tip the big fat fig? Sid Pig really wants that fig, everybody. Can Sid hit the big fat fig? Can Sid hit the big fat fig? Sid Pig did it. He can have his fig. So Sid Pig finally hit the fig. Look at it coming down. What do we think's going to happen next? I don't know. Let's see. Oh, Sid bit his big fat fig. So Sid did what? He bit his big fat fig. Aw, good for Sid Pig. He got to eat his fat fig.